It's a cold winter day. You've left home to make a pilgrimage to Canada's capital for the first time. Like many before you, you're in awe of its beauty. You take in the sights, spend the day on the steps of Parliament Hill, go to the Peace Tower, and are amazed by the library. In the afternoon, you enjoy the world's largest skating rink and explore 7.8 kilometers of the UNESCO World Heritage Site that becomes a treasure and a pride of the national capital. The Rideau Canal is a signature destination, and it's right beside where you'll be spending the night. As you skate towards it, you think of its history and feel excited that you'll be staying in what looks like a real-life castle. You're living a fairy tale, and as you walk through its front doors, you think of all the dignitaries, celebrities, and events that have marked its long history. As you take the first few steps into the white marble lobby, you're wonderstruck by its luxury and how empty it is. You take a few more steps, and suddenly, you hear singing. Where's it coming from? You follow the disembodied voice as your stomach flips. You feel a chill run down your spine, and then an unseen hand brushes you as a door suddenly slams and jolts you back into reality. But now you know you're not alone. I'm Nadine Bailey, and this is Haunted Canada. Join me as we journey to Ottawa, Canada, and explore the mysterious and inexplicable events taking place inside the Chateau Laurier. The Kernel-by Valley, located at the confluence of the Rideau Canal and the Ottawa River, in the heart of Ottawa, Ontario, are known as the Ottawa Locks. It is the birthplace of the canal that descends into the Ottawa River. The valley is flanked on the west by Parliament Hill and on the east by the iconic Chateau Laurier. Its granite exterior and intricate detailing, including pointed arches, large windows, and ornate carvings, make it stand out as a key example of early 20th century architecture and cost $2 million to construct. And inside, the Chateau Laurier is just as grand. Its marble floors, elegant chandeliers, and richly decorated rooms, ballrooms, restaurants, and lobby offer a mix of classic and contemporary Canadian luxury. The opulent hotel was commissioned by Charles Melville Hayes, the president of the Grand Trunk Pacific Railway. Charles Hayes was born in 1856 in Rock Island, Illinois, and was a go-getter since he was a young child. He began working at 17 years old as a railway clerk and quickly climbed the ranks to general manager of the Wabush, St. Louis, and Pacific Railway. He became vice president in 1889 until 1896, when he jumped ship, or maybe I should say train, to become general manager of the Grand Trunk Railway, GTR, of Canada. As the president, he played a critical role in the transportation and infrastructure of the country by expanding railway lines, especially in eastern Canada, connecting major cities such as Montreal, Toronto, and Quebec. Hayes also played an integral part in the discussions of the transcontinental railway system. At the time, the Canadian government was seeking ways to improve the national railway network, and Hayes's GTR had an important role in railway consolidation. His leadership and his efforts in the railway system helped strengthen the economic integration of the country and facilitated the movement of goods and people across vast distances. Plus, the improved railway boosted trade, agriculture, and resource extraction, helping to promote Canada's development as a nation. Along the railway, Hayes also envisioned company-owned tourist destinations to incentivize more customers to use these routes. So, the Grand Trunk Railway constructed several deluxe hotels as the new line appeared. The company's crowning jewel would accommodate visitors arriving by train to Ottawa, particularly those involved in politics and business. It would be named after Sir Wilfrid Laurier, the Prime Minister of Canada, from 1896 to 1911, in recognition of his role in shaping the national identity and because he was a key figure in Hayes's efforts in expanding the railway. That hotel became the Chateau Laurier. Hayes had been inspired by the great European hotels, and he sought to create one that would rival the most prestigious and marvelous hotels in North America. Ottawa had an increasing number of government officials, diplomats, and wealthy travelers visiting the city, as it became the political and administrative heart of the country. He saw a growing need for upscale accommodations. The location was strategic, near the Rideau Canal and Parliament Hill, an area that would offer splendid views of Ottawa's political and cultural landmarks. The Montreal architectural firm Ross McFarlane designed the hotel and based their plans for a blend of Romanesque revival and Scottish baronial architecture on designs created by New York's Bradford Lee Gilbert. The result was a structure that appeared to be a castle-like fortress with turrets, towers, and intricate stonework which reflected both elegance and grandeur while incorporating the latest technology. The exterior design, with its steeply pitched slate roof and distinctive limestone facade, drew inspiration from medieval European castles. The combination of thick stone walls and decorative elements created a visually striking structure that would stand as a symbol of Canada's political and cultural importance for years to come. Construction officially began in 1907. The work was overseen by the Grand Trunk Railway. As I mentioned, the company had already invested in other luxurious hotels across Canada and was keen to make this venture a success. It was a massive undertaking that required skilled labor from across the country. Thousands of tons of limestone were brought in, and workers faced the challenge of building on site near the Rideau Canal, which involved careful planning to ensure that the stability of the structure and the proximity to the water. Construction also faced economic challenges. By the time construction began in 1907, Canada was experiencing some economic uncertainty. While Ottawa was growing in stature as the national capital, it was still a relatively small city, and the demand for a lavish hotel was not guaranteed. There were also concerns over the costs associated with the scale and the luxury of the hotel. The Grand Trunk Railway had to continually inject funds to ensure the hotel's completion, and this required financial restructuring and careful management to meet those needs. Moreover, the company was facing competition from other hotels in major Canadian cities, and in the shifting economy, it was becoming harder and harder for Hayes to secure his vision for the Chateau Laurier. Regardless, Hayes pushed through, and with several adjustments to the original plans, construction continued, albeit slower than anticipated. As 1912 fast approached, the project was nearing completion, so Hayes traveled to England in the spring with his family to purchase luxury furniture and furnishings for the new hotel and to attend to business matters. He was accompanied to Europe by his family, and they planned to stay in London for a while before returning to Canada. He was supposed to spend Easter in Paris with his daughter and son-in-law, Thornton and Orion Davis, but in a letter to friends in Montreal on April 1st, he said that he would be sailing home because he was anxious to return. He wanted to be in Ottawa for the grand opening of the Chateau Laurier, which was scheduled for April 26, 1912. And he had gotten word that his youngest daughter, Louise, was also having a difficult pregnancy. So instead of staying, the family and Paul Romain Chevre, the sculptor who had done the bust of Laurier for the hotel, booked first-class accommodations on the RMS Titanic. On April 10, 1912, Hayes and his large group boarded the RMS Titanic in Southampton, England. The Titanic was touted as the largest, most luxurious, and technologically advanced passenger ship of its time. It was making its maiden voyage from Southampton to New York City and would be traveling through the North Atlantic, an area known for its icebergs, especially in April. Hayes, a successful businessman, however, wouldn't have had a care in the world as he enjoyed the best of what the ship had to offer. He got to relax in the opulent lounges and dining rooms, which were all connected to the grand staircase. There was fine dining, entertainment, and mingling with high society, including John Jacob Astor IV, a wealthy American real estate magnate, and Isidore Straus, co-owner of Macy's department store. On the night of April 14th, the Titanic was approximately 370 miles, 600 kilometers south of Newfoundland. The night sky was clear with a bright moon, thanks to the calm weather and the unusual still waters. Hayes relaxed with Colonel Archibald Gracie and Captain Edward Crosby in the gentlemen's smoking lounge, and they talked about the technological advances in transportation. The trip was traveling close to its maximum speed when, at approximately 11:40 p.m., lookouts in the Titanic's crow's nest, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee, spotted an iceberg directly in the ship's path. Fleet famously rang the bell to alert the bridge and shouted, "Iceberg right ahead." The rest, as you know, is history. Despite best efforts, the Titanic struck the iceberg and scraped along its side, causing a series of punctures and breaches in the hull below the waterline. It created a gash roughly 300 feet, 91 meters long, along the right side of the ship near the front of the vessel. The ship's watertight compartments, designed to contain flooding and to keep the ship afloat in case of a puncture, were breached in multiple places. The vessel was supposed to be unsinkable, but there was enough damage to overwhelm the ship's design, and flooding spread rapidly as it began to tilt downward at the bow. Within 2 hours and 40 minutes after the collision, the Titanic was doomed. Hayes, like many other passengers, initially may not have realized the full extent of the disaster. He never believed the ship would sink so quickly. However, as it became clear that the Titanic was cursed, chaos reigned. His actions during the sinking are not fully documented, but several reports suggest that he acted with calm and dignity. In the midst of the disaster, he put his wife and daughter into a lifeboat and assured them that the Titanic would, quote, stay afloat for at least 10 hours. Sadly, he would be wrong, as Hayes was seen on the deck of the sinking ship, urging others to board lifeboats. He did not prioritize his own escape. He never made it off the Titanic. Charles Melville Hayes was one of the estimated 1,500 who died that night. His lifeless body was pulled from the icy waters by the ship the Minna 12 days later. The very week he was supposed to be attending the grand opening of the Chateau Laurier, instead, sailor Francis Dyke wrote to his mother on April 26th, stating that, quote, it was no trouble to identify him, as he had a lot of papers on him and a watch with his name on it, end quote. Hayes' coffin was brought back to Montreal for burial aboard his private railway car named Canada. Simultaneous funerals were held on May 8th for Hayes at the American Presbyterian Church in Montreal and at the Church of the St. Edmund King and Martyr in London. At 11:30 a.m. on the day of the funeral, the Montreal Herald reported, quote, from Montreal to Chicago, from New Brunswick to the Pacific Coast, and all the thousands of miles of sidings and branch lines owned and operated by the Grand Trunk Railway, in every Grand Trunk depot, at every Grand Trunk crossing, action ceased for the space of a full 5 minutes as the Grand Trunk Railway system paid its respect to the memory of its great departed chief. For 5 minutes, activities were suspended, and the thousands of individuals who served the great system in various capacities bowed their heads in silent tribute. Then once more, work resumed. The wheels turned, and in 30 seconds, things had been as they had been before. End quote. Workers across the country had stopped working for 5 minutes to pay their respects to the man described as one of Canada's greatest railwaymen. Hayes' sudden death was also a major blow at a critical juncture in the final construction of the Chateau Laurier. Their fates were intertwined, and without a central advocate and a guiding force, it created a challenge. In addition to the emotional impact of his death, the hotel now faced the possibility of a delay in its opening as the railway needed time to reorganize and assign new leadership to ensure that the work was completed. As I mentioned, the hotel was originally scheduled to open on April 26, 1912, but was delayed until June 12th, when a more suitable opening ceremony took place. It was originally supposed to be a lavish event, but instead, a silent toast was given to Hayes' memory, and Sir Wilfrid Laurier was the first to sign the hotel's register. The dark shadow of grief and loss loomed large as dignitaries, politicians, business leaders, and local elite mingled in the grand lobby and toured the hotel's stunning facilities. Little did they know that the spirit of Charles Melville Hayes lingered among them. Since the hotel's opening, it is said that the ghost of Charles Hayes can be found walking the hallways that he spent so much time dreaming about. He never got to see his vision come to life, and he never got to personally oversee the operations of his hotel. Most of the paranormal activity occurs on the 5th floor, specifically in the Charles Melville Hayes Memorial Suite. This is where staff and visitors alike have seen lights switching on and off, heard open doors slamming shut, and have felt unnerved by a presence watching them, observing their every move. Many believe Charles Melville Hayes is a friendly ghost, that he has remained behind to look after his hotel. He has also been spotted near the ballroom and the front lobby, which were parts of the hotel he had been involved in designing. Witnesses claim to have seen a man dressed in early 1900s attire walking along the hallways and disappearing into the walls. The spirit is said to be that of a tall, well-dressed figure with a distinguished appearance. Some have even heard footsteps and the sound of a cane tapping the floors in the lobby or corridors. The sounds are possibly a trace of his presence. A TripAdvisor review from a guest in London, Ontario states, quote, "It's said to be haunted, and I definitely had some ghostly experiences. I think I was on a particularly haunted floor though, and however scared it was, it didn't scare me enough to make me not want to come back," unquote. Patrick Watson, famed journalist and producer, became CBC chairman from 1989 to 1994. A Toronto Sun article from October 27, 2010, shared Watson's unusual experiences at the hotel, and they seemed to defy explanation. One night years earlier, Watson was awakened by a sound as sharp as a pistol shot and discovered a heavy glass ashtray on a nearby table had cracked neatly in half. Watson said, "It was not a particularly cold night. There was no conceivable explanation for this phenomenon," Watson told author Joan Rankin in the book Meet Me at the Chateau. The next night, he was awakened again by another loud sound, this time coming from the bathroom. When Watson got up to investigate, he found his shaving kit, which he had placed behind the taps against the wall, was now at the far end of the room. Watson said, quote, "Both these events, trivial as they may sound, were inexplicable and left me quite shaken," he said. Other guests in various rooms have corroborated Watson's experiences, as they claim that objects have moved inexplicably during their stay. Books, glasses, and clothing have been displaced and found in new locations from where they were originally kept. Some have even reported hearing these objects shift or fall during the night, only to find them in an unusual spot the next morning. There were also reports of strange noises throughout the hotel, including unexplained footsteps, doors slamming shut without reason, distant conversations, and even singing that no one can trace. The sources of these noises are often difficult to identify and seem to happen most frequently at night when the hotel is quieter. Cold spots are another recurring paranormal phenomenon. Guests have reported experiencing sudden drops in temperature in various parts of the hotel, particularly in the hallways, stairwells, and in some of the older rooms. These cold spots often seem to materialize out of nowhere, and even during warm weather, some areas of the hotel feel unnaturally cold. And if that's not enough, the hotel is often known for mysterious flickers of lights, especially in the hallways and windows. Guests have reported seeing lights turn on and off by themselves, or faint shadows moving across the walls at night. These shadows seem to have a life of their own and don't follow the natural course of people walking in the area. Hotel staff are the ones who seem to experience the most of these supernatural encounters. Some have described feeling watched, while others have reported hearing disembodied voices, especially in the hotel's older areas like the kitchen, back halls, and storage spaces. On occasion, employees working late have heard laughter or the sound of someone calling their name, only to turn around and find the area empty. Certain rooms at the Chateau Laurier have gained a reputation for being particularly haunted. Room 1210 is often singled out as one of the most haunted locations within the hotel, with reports of unusual sensations, creepy feelings of being watched, and strange occurrences like the sounds of footsteps or breathing from the next room when no one is there. Other rooms on the upper floors are also associated with a strong sense of unease, with guests sometimes feeling that they are not alone despite being in a private space. It seems like every corner of this luxurious hotel is haunted, and that includes the elevators. Guests have reported the elevator stopping at odd floors, opening and closing by itself, or even moving between floors without being summoned. These strange malfunctions are unnerving, as they often happen in the middle of the night, adding to the building's haunted reputation. But the spirit of Charles Melville Hayes can't be the only one to blame. Some believe he's joined in mischief by his friend, the artist and sculptor Paul Chevre. You'll remember that Paul Chevre boarded the Titanic along Hayes. The French artist had been charged with sculpting a bust of Sir Wilfrid Laurier to be showcased in the hotel's lobby. Paul had completed the sculpture and was traveling on the ill-fated vessel. On the evening of the disaster, Chevre was playing cards in the Café Parisia when the ship hit the iceberg. Chevre thought it was just too cold to go outside to investigate. He asked his steward to open a porthole and have a look. Even though the accident didn't appear to be serious, Chevre and his companions pocketed their cards and got into one of the first lifeboats being lowered. Some of his other companions mocked him, but Chevre wasn't taking any chances. He survived, along with a 7,444-pound bust of Laurier, which had been aboard a different ship called the Britannia. The statue of Sir Wilfrid Laurier was safely delivered to the hotel, where it still remains to this day. Sadly, Chevre died just 2 years later in Paris on February 20th, 1914. However, many believe he's not too far from the famous bust. People have reported they felt the eyes of the statue following them as they walked past it and through the lobby, while others say that while they're admiring it, that they have felt a disembodied tap on their shoulder, followed by a cold breeze at the back of their neck. To this day, staff believe that it is Paul Chevre guarding his most precious work. The Chateau Laurier Hotel has a rich history intertwined with mystery and tragedy. Since the hotel opened in 1912, it has hosted over 15 million visitors from around the world, including Queen Elizabeth II, Nelson Mandela, Sir Winston Churchill, former U.S. President Herbert Hoover, along with celebrities like Bryan Adams and Carrie Fisher. In these storied rooms and halls, political deals have been made and careers have been launched. It has also been the backdrop to movies and TV shows. Regardless of the reason for your visit, know that many believe that paranormal activity can easily be found within its walls. Whether it's the spirit of Charles Melville Hayes or other inexplicable phenomenon, the Chateau Laurier remains one of Canada's most haunted locations, captivating the imagination of those who visit and work there and fueling its ghostly reputation. Thank you for joining me as we explore the historic and haunted Chateau Laurier. Haunted Canada is sponsored by the Evan & Ghost Tours. I will link it in the show notes. Haunted Canada is written and produced by me, Nadine Bailey, with senior producer Dila Velasquez. Production and sound design is by Rob Johnston, with help from Rosin Kufer. If you would like to support this podcast, please follow and share. And if you can give us a like and a 5-star written review, that is always appreciated. Also, you can follow me on our different social media platforms, or if you have a ghost story, haunting, or true crime that you would like for us to cover on this podcast, please email me through the website hauntedcanada.com. Thank you from all of us at Haunted Canada and Curious Cast. Have a good night, everyone, and stay haunted.